Although we are looking at the 12 tribes of Israel, I don't want us to forget that they were one group, one family, one community. And those who have been in the class with me before know that I often have a quiz question. So I have a quiz question for you today. And that is, how do we know that God was not looking solely for animal sacrifices from those who followed? And there's more than one part to the answer. No, I'm not thinking of different kinds of offerings. But there's a couple of things in particular that give a really good clue. David sounds a contrite heart. Okay. You know where that's found? There's a down song. You know what song? All right, I'll give you some hints. The most well-known passage is in Psalm 40. So look at that for a second. All right, Adam, read Psalm 46 through 8. Psalm 40, verses 6 through 8. This is the most, I was expecting somebody to say this one. It's the most well-known passage that refutes the idea that God wanted animal sacrifices, and that's the only thing he was pleased with. All right. I want Adam to read.
Sacrifice and offerings among years, burnt offerings and offerings is not required. When I said, here I have come, it is written about me, behold. I desire to do your will, my God, your law in my heart.
Okay, who is that prophesying about that? Right. You know where it's found in the New Testament? It's found in Hebrews. Hebrews 10. Okay. So that's number one. But there were certain things long before this prophecy of David that let Israel know that animal sacrifice was not really what he was looking for from them. I'm talking about the children of Israel in particular. All right. Where did he say he wanted them to make their animal sacrifices? Okay, that's pretty close, yes. That wasn't the phrase he used, but anybody remember the phrase that he used? The phrase that he used was in the place that I put my name. That's where he wanted. So he had one particular place in the whole land where he wanted them to make their animal sacrifices. I don't think I wrote it down, but anyway. What was the problem with the idea that animal sacrifices was what he was looking for, and that fact that he wanted them to make their sacrifices in one particular place? Go.
I don't know, I'm not going to guess the right answer. I'm just going to say because
Speak loud. You gotta keep a lot of people behind.
it's the spot where his offered his sacrifices. He was king of Salem, so that's the sort of group. He bought a Russian for Jebusite David to which was the actual spot.
All right, pause. Think more elementary. You're getting sophisticated in your answer. Think about the layout of the tribes. All right, the short answer is that it would have been very difficult for someone who lived in the northern part of the country to come all the way down to Jerusalem just to offer a sacrifice, an animal sacrifice. And they have to stop their farming, their animal herding. It take them like a week to get down there and a week to get back. And so the idea that that's what pleases him doesn't mesh well with the idea that it's a real difficult thing for a lot of them to go to the place where God would put his name and offer an animal sacrifice. Now, if that's what he was really looking for, he could have said, all right, any Levitical city would be fine to offer a sacrifice in. He made it very plain. He said, I don't want you to offer sacrifices anywhere that you live, on every high hill and every place that you reside. That's what the Canaanites did, and I don't want you to do that. And that's what he said. I want you to go to the place where I'll put my name. He could have said, if he was really looking for animal sacrifices and that would really please him, he could have said, okay, you can go to any Levitical city and offer your sacrifice, and the priest will help you, and that would be fine. Because every tribe had Levitical cities in it. So he didn't do that. He didn't even say you can take it to a city of refuge, and the Levites, the priests, will help you offer it there. How many cities of refuge were there? There were 6, and they were scattered all up and down the area occupied by the 12 tribes. So he didn't say even that would be all right. He said, I want one place, I want you to offer it in one place and one place only. So that is a very strong clue before David wrote Psalm 40 that the animal sacrifices were not what he was really seeking for them. Okay. All right, just real quick. All that I just mentioned is found in Deuteronomy 12. Fine, but we won't read. Yeah, we will. Deuteronomy 12, 1 through 16. All right, starting with Nicholas, let's work our way around the room. Read 2 apiece, please. Deuteronomy 12.
These are the statutes and judgments which you shall observe to do in the land, the Lord God of thy fathers giveth thee to possess it all the days that you live upon the earth. You shall utterly destroy all the places wherein the nations which you shall possess serve their gods on the high hills under every king's tree.
Okay.
after all the things that we do here this day. Every day.
Jeez.
All right, so he makes a distinction. Any animal that you want to eat for food, fine. Just go ahead and kill it at your place of abode, get rid of the blood, and go ahead and eat it. But if you're going to sacrifice to the Lord, you can't do it at your own house. You have to bring it to the place where the Lord would name. All right, so one more reference to in this topic is Psalm 50, verses 8 through 15. And I think we'll go ahead and read 8 through 23. And this kind of adds more proof to it. Psalm 50, starting with verse 8.
No one can enter the kingdom of God unless he is born of water and the Spirit, with a capital S. Flesh gives birth to flesh, but the Spirit gives birth to spirit. You should not be surprised by saying,
Speak against your brother, slander your own son. These things do God. I will reprove, state the case, work.
All right, so he said, I don't need your animals. All the animals on the hill are mine. If I was hungry, I wouldn't touch you. And then he closes it with the idea of who offers praise glorifies me. And to him that offers his conversation or behavior aright, will I show the salvation of God. So was the offering of animals a moot point? No. But
To me, is these words that you just brought up in Psalm
here, just go to Dan or Bethel and worship my gods, these golden calves. And you don't have to observe my holy days. I've got some for you. And there's no such thing as priest anymore, and anybody can be a priest. It was all about healing the laziness of mankind. You don't have to face this huge effort. Here, I'll make it real simple. You don't need to go worship God anymore. You can do this instead. It's so much easier. And so that's why Jeroboam, some of the bad sins are echoed in the wall, all the kings, and the book of Kings and as the worst of the worst, because what he did is he flips the God wanted with what man wants, which is God said over and don't worship these high places. You hear about the high places all high places. And you realize it's just a matter of convenience. It was easier to do than to do. And so what Jeroboam did was replace God's law with this. And that's what's to me. You've substituted man for God.
All right, if we look at Leviticus, and we won't, but you'll see a lot of details about how he wanted them to offer various offerings. And he wasn't looking for them to just put their own spin on what he wanted. He wanted it done that way. And yet we see here that it's not the offerings that pleased him, even though he was very specific in how he wanted offerings made. So what's the driving thing that he's looking for? What is he looking for, either in the way that they were offered or otherwise? What was the thing that he was really seeking from anything? Right.
Kind of one example to answer the question was when Saul comes in and God tells him to basically remember what the Amalekites have done and just destroy everything. Saul goes in and people want to keep all the good stuff for themselves. They do, and Saul lets them. And so Saul then offers a sacrifice in Gilgal. And Samuel comes to him and gives a pretty nice summary speech to kind of get the point across. It's not about the sacrifice. That's 1 Samuel 15, 22. Samuel said, "As the Lord is great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices, as in obeying the voice of the Lord. Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, to hearken better than the fat of rams. Rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft, and stubbornness of the iniquity of idolatry. Because you have rejected the word of the Lord, he has rejected you from being king." So Samuel, I think the indication there is he kind of felt that, well, if I offer this sacrifice, it'll cover the sin. And the big message is God wants obedience. He desires to listen to what he said.
Very good. Now let's take that one step further. The Pharisees in particular were very key. They really keyed in on that idea of obedience. They wrote volumes on what obedience meant under different scenarios. And yet, Jesus said, you're as far off as anybody, as far as what God is really seeking. So what did they miss in all of their effort to be obedient? David.
I think it's the great commandment to love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. That
Right.
He wanted us to reflect the love that He is giving us.
Right. That's the key. He wants the obedience that Samuel told Saul, but he wants your heart. He wants, Brad says sometimes, he wants all of it. And that is where all this leads to. It's not the animal sacrifices. It's not even specifically doing the animal sacrifices in the way that he spelled out in Leviticus. He wanted their hearts. And I think it's Malachi. It says, bring me the whole offering. And brother said that means I want not just the offering, but I want the heart, the right mind that goes with it. All right, so that's our quiz question for today. Yes, sir.
I always try to, obviously, there's present time, obviously, of sacrifice. But, you can read a verse and say, really, God wants a contrite heart, and that's what he wants from us. So there's two extremes that everyone handles these things. So you can say, well, I don't need to do all this things, I'm fine. I don't need to fellowship with them. Serve others, I've got a relationship with God. Or vice versa, you can just show up to the sacrifices, these things that God has asked you with. So it's the same thing, right? If your heart is right, then you're likely showing the fruit of wanting to fellowship, wanting to help others. Just like if your heart is right, then they would go the extra make the sacrifice according to the way God would take the church sacrifice. Relates the same ways.
All right, Rob, build on that. When Jesus healed lepers in particular, he usually gave them a command. Do you remember what that command was? After they've been healed.
Go wash. No, go to the priest.
Go to priest and do what Moses said to do. He wasn't trying to rewrite what God had said. And he said, I didn't come to abolish the law and the prophets, but to fulfill them. So he never tried to change what God had said. And that goes along with what you just said. All right. Any more comments on that? Bill. Good. Okay, go ahead. Very good. So what I was trying to show is that not only do we have verses like Micah 6, Psalm 50, Psalm 40, where it says that God, and the one that talks about the broken and contrite heart, but we have from the way that God arranged things in Israel, it's spelled out that the animal sacrifices weren't really in themselves what he was seeking from Israel as a people. He was seeking their hearts because of the covenants that he made with them and their fathers. Okay. Anything else? Okay. We'll move on. Yesterday at the youth camp, the topic of study was the first 6 days, 7 days of creation, or 6 days in the day of rest. And one thing that was pointed out emphatically was that each day involved a lot of thinking on God's part, a lot of order in what he was doing. He didn't just say, let there be such and such, and there was such and such. He set a very detailed order up for men and animals to live in. Everything that he does, everything that he has done, has had a lot of thinking behind it. Not just the creation, but the way that he laid out his plan of salvation, calling first individuals, then Abraham and Abraham's descendants, and finally the Gentiles. It's had a lot of thought behind it and how he was going to carry it out for optimum benefit for this creation. When those who've been in Sunday school with me before, I covered this, but when he brought Israel out of Egypt into the promised land, which is known as Canaan, he didn't just bring Israel up. He surrounded Israel with people that he wanted them to be surrounded by, for optimal benefit, not just for Israel, but for the people that he brought in. So if you go to Deuteronomy Chapter 2, and we won't read the whole thing, but he's talking to them about passing through the land of Edom, passing through the land of Ammon and Moab, who were their king. Edom, of course, was the descendants of Esau, the brother of Jacob. Moab and Ammon were the descendants of Lot, the nephew of Abraham. And he says, you won't just take things from them. Anything that you take, you're going to buy. And what I want to look at in particular was starting with verse 9. Go through 12, and then skip over and go through, start at verse 19 and go through 23. All right, so Deuteronomy 2, 9 to 12 and 19 to 23. Whoever.
Lord said unto me, express not the Moabites, contend with them in battle, for I will not give thee of their land for possession, because I have given Ar unto the children of Lot for possession. The Emmons dwell there in times past, the people great and many and tall as the Anakims.
There's also word counted giants, as the Anakims, but the Moabites called as heathens. The Horims also dwelt in Seir before time. Esau succeeded them, when they had destroyed them from before them, and dwelt in their stead, as Israel did unto the land of his possession, which the Lord gave unto them.
Down to 19.
And when you come near the people, ask them about I will not give you any of the land of the people of Ammon's possession, because I've given it to the descendants of Lot as possession. That was also regarded as a land of giants. Giants formerly dwelt there, but the Ammonites called the Zamzummim a people as great and numerous and tall as the Anakim. The Lord destroyed them before them, they dispossessed them and dwelt in their place.
As he did to the children of Esau, which dwelt in Seir, when he destroyed the walls from before them. They succeeded them and dwelt in their stead, even to this day.
One more.
And the Ammons, which dwelt in Hazor, even also Azal and Caphtorims, which came forth out of Caphtor, destroyed them and dwelt in their stead.
All right, does anybody know who the Captorims were? We better know them as the Philistines, yes. All right, so a couple of points here. He used Edom or Esau, Moab, and Ammon to drive out peoples that were there and settled them in areas adjacent to where he would put the children of Jacob, the children of Israel. Two things to note about that is, one, some of them were giants that these people of Ammon defeated. So it's not like giants couldn't be defeated. All right, what was the other reason that he would put their kinsmen or distant kinsmen beside where he put the children of Jacob. Why would he do that? He said he did it intentionally. Why would he do it? Joseph?
Well, the thing that I found was, I mean, there's all these edicts like Moab and Edom and all the prophets they brought that they gotta despise them. So they weren't really but there's so many times in history. The other piece of evidence to me is Judges chapter 2, just the first 5 verses. Because this is the and he says failed because compromised. You look out of the body and said, I brought you out of Egypt and led you to this land I promised your fathers. I also said, I will never break my covenant with you. You are not to make a covenant with people who are living in this land. You are to tear down their altars, but you have not been. This is what you have done. Therefore, I now say, I will not drive out these peoples before you. They will be thorns in your sides, and their gods will be a trap for you. And the angel of the Lord took these words, all the Israelites, and wept loudly, so they knew that place God offered sacrifices there to the Lord.
Okay, good. I think of, in connection with that, think of the memory verse that Rob was discussing this morning. I'm pleased to hear that my children walk in truth. He put those nations around Israel so that Israel could be a light to them, and that maybe their hearts could be changed by witnessing the spiritual Israel conducting themselves spiritually. But of course, Israel failed in that regard, so there was much hope for the Edomites, Moabites, and Ammonites, and as Joe said, they attacked Israel more than were friendly to them. So that's the thought for this morning, is that God moves people around according to his plan. In fact, one of the Psalms says that he set it's Deuteronomy 32, 8, 9. Let's close with that. Then I'll let Rob come on up here. Deuteronomy 32, 8, 9.
When the Most High divided their inheritance to the nations, and he separated the sons of Adam, he set the boundaries according to the number of the children of Israel. For the Lord's portion is his people. Jacob is the place of his inheritance.
Okay, so he set the bounds of the other nations according to what he is planning to do with Israel. And again, they were supposed to be a light to them. So we'll stop there and take up again later.